Kneel down and confess. I will not kneel. I will not live a lie.
Kneel down and confess. Delia van Rensburg's voice cracked across the candlelit dining room, and 40 guests turned their heads at once. The power had gone out an hour earlier. The generator hummed somewhere behind the kitchen, feeding only the wine fridges and half the lights, so the rest of the room floated in the amber glow of hurricane lamps. Nomsa Dlamini stood between two security men, her uniform still dark and heavy with rain, her hands still carrying the faint rust-brown stain of a stranger's blood. Delia raised an empty envelope above her head so everyone could see it. 73,850 rand. Gone. This girl pretended to save a dying old man so she could rob him. A gasp moved through the tables. Phones came up. Somebody near the window laughed, a short, ugly sound. Then Delia stepped forward and tore the name tag from Nomsa's chest, the little brass pin scratching a thin red line below her collarbone, and she dropped it on the floor and set the point of her heel on it. You people are becoming too clever, Delia said. You smell of taxi smoke and township rain, and yet you want to steal like a rich woman. Kneel. Nomsa's lips trembled. Her eyes burned. She did not kneel. I sealed that man's money before I got into the ambulance, she said quietly, and somebody in this room opened the bag and changed it. The dining room went dead silent, because the frail stranger she had carried out into the storm was not a beggar, and he was not a nobody. He was the father of the man whose company was 2 days away from buying this entire estate. And when that man walked through the door, one powerful woman would beg for the same mercy she had just refused to give. Stay with this one. The truth hidden inside that sealed bag is going to cost more than one person their name. 14 hours earlier, Kayamandi woke under a sky the color of wet ash. By 5:30 in the morning, the rain was already drumming on the corrugated roofs, sliding through the gap above Nomsa's window and pooling in a dark line across the concrete floor. She sat on the edge of a narrow bed and counted the money in her purse for the third time. 380 rand. That was everything. Rent was 4 days late. Her college deposit for the hospitality certificate was due Friday, and the training office had already sent 2 reminders, each one a little colder than the last. Outstanding, 2,400 rand. Non-payment will result in cancellation of your place. Nomsa stared at the message until the letters blurred, then locked the phone. Staring never turned 380 into 2,400. She pulled on her shoes, the left one lined inside with a folded square of plastic bag where the sole had cracked, and she stepped out into the rain. The minibus taxi was already full when it reached her corner. She squeezed in between a woman, balancing a tray of frozen chicken, and a man asleep against the fogged glass. The Garchi hung half out of the sliding door, slapping the roof, shouting for change. Molo sissy, the woman with the chicken said, and Nomsa said Molo back, and for a moment the small kindness of a stranger's greeting was the warmest thing in the cold morning. The taxi lurched onto the N2 and crawled toward the winelands, past the vineyards, climbing the slopes in long green rows, past the mountains still hiding their peaks in cloud. Bluecrans Wine Estate stood at the end of a private avenue of oak trees, all glass and pale stone and gold lettering. At night, it glowed like a jewelry box beside the dam. In the afternoons, the German sedans and the blackout backies rolled up the drive, carrying wine buyers, politicians, influencers, people who never asked the price before they ordered. But the works did not come in, said his buddy. But the works did not come in through the front. They came through a narrow gate behind the kitchen, past the refuse bay, where the smell of old grape skins mixed with the diesel of the generator. Nomsa reached that gate at 13 minutes past 8, 3 minutes late. Delia was waiting under a black umbrella. She wore a ruby blazer and pointed shoes that looked too expensive to touch ordinary ground, and her lipstick was exact even at that hour. Her expression was not. "So you have started again," she said. "Good morning, Mises. Do not good morning me. What is the time? 13 past. Meezies, there was a holdup on the N2, the rain, the taxi. Was the holdup inside your bedroom? No? Then keep your township excuses. Rian will take 200 off your wages. Nomsa looked at her. She knew she should lower her eyes. She did not. My shift starts at 8:15. Delia smiled slowly, the kind of smile that comes just before the damage. Your shift starts when I decide I want to see your face. Are you the owner? No, Meezies. Are you a shareholder? No. Meezies. Then get inside before I take another 200 for arguing. Nomsa swallowed the answer, sitting on her tongue, and went in. The dining room was still empty. The glasses standing upside down on white cloth, the cutlery catching the gray light. Beyond the windows, the dam lay flat and silver, pretending the day was peaceful. Behind the service door, the peace ended. One aircon had been dead for 6 weeks. The staff room smelled of damp uniforms and industrial soap, and the first aid cabinet hung open on a broken hinge with nothing inside but 2 expired paracetamol sachets and a roll of dirty cotton wool. Thandeka came in tying a headscarf over her hair, 29 and sharp-eyed and usually too tired to waste words. You survived? She asked. 200 off for 3 minutes. Thandeka clicked her tongue, Haibo. God will judge that woman with full evidence. God should hurry. Rent is waiting. They laughed, but the laughter died fast. They have not paid the kitchen overtime again, Thandeka said, lowering her voice. 6 weeks now. Rian says it is a system error. The same system that never makes an error when it is taking money off us, Nomsa said. That system is a prophet. It only sees the sins of poor people. At 20 to 10, the staff briefing began. Delia stood in front of 23 workers holding a tablet like a magistrate holding a sentence. Today is important, she said. Umoya Hospitality is still reviewing this estate for acquisition. That means no mistakes, no pulling faces, no moving around like people who have given up on life. Smile. Stand straight. Speak properly. Her eyes moved to Nomsa. And some of you must remember that the guests did not drive all this way to look at your personal suffering. A waiter raised his hand. Meezies, are the tips being shared today? Delia's eyes sharpened. What kind of useless question is that during a briefing? We have not received last month's pool, reconciling in it. Are you the finance manager? No? Then face your tray before your tray faces unemployment. The room went quiet. Delia nodded, satisfied. And one more thing. A film crew arrives at 3 for our Warm Plates campaign. When they come, I want happy staff in the background. Nobody mentions salaries. Nobody looks hungry. Thandeka murmured under her breath, how does a hungry person stop looking hungry? Nomsa pressed her lips together. If Delia heard, they would both pay for it. By noon, the estate had changed shape. Soft jazz drifted through the room. Plates arrived, carrying things with foreign names, so they could cost more. Nomsa worked the floor with a tray balanced on an open palm, and at table 9 a man in a cobalt tie complained that his sparkling water was not cold enough, and looked at her name tag and asked whether people out here even owned fridges. She apologized and brought another bottle. His apology, he said, could not cool warm water. His friend chuckled. She took the bottle away and said nothing, because saying something cost 200 rand at a time. At 27 minutes past 4, an old man came in through the front doors. He wore a mustard yellow cardigan over an ivory shirt, brown trousers, and shoes that were clean but old. No gold watch, no sunglasses, no assistant walking behind him. He leaned on a carved wooden cane and stood just inside the entrance, letting his eyes adjust. The hostess glanced at him once and looked back down at her screen. He waited. After almost a minute, he cleared his throat. Molo, my daughter, he said gently. Good afternoon. The hostess finally looked up. Afternoon, sir. Do you have a booking? No. I would like a quiet table by the window. All the window tables are reserved. The old man looked across the room. 5 window tables stood empty. I see, he said. And she was still deciding what to say when Delia arrived, her eyes traveling from the worn cardigan to the cane. Sir, this is a fine dining establishment. Window tables are for booked guests. Several are empty. They are waiting for people. The old man smiled faintly. Am I not a person? Delia did not smile. Please do not make this difficult. We have a table near the back, by the service door. If that does not suit you, there are lovely places in town that might be more comfortable. The old man's hand tightened on the cane, not with anger, with memory. He had built his first company out of 2 rented rooms in Gugulethu. He had once eaten dry bread for supper for a week, because 5 of his workers had not been paid, and he refused to eat before them. He knew exactly what it was to be measured by his shoes, by his accent, by how much confidence his clothes gave off. He also knew that Blaukranz was chasing hundreds of millions in investment from his son's group, and that was precisely why he had come alone, dressed in a way that announced nothing. Give me the table at the back, he said. His name was Sipho Khumalo. Only 3 people in the industry knew he was reviewing the estate that day. Delia was not one of them. Nomsa saw him when he sat down near the service door. She noticed the small tremor in his left hand. She noticed how slowly he lowered himself into the chair, and that after 6 minutes, nobody had brought him water. She carried a glass over. Molo, Baba. Still or sparkling? Still, he said. And something simple if the kitchen will allow it. My stomach is old. She glanced at the menu. The cheapest main was 490 rand. We do not have anything very simple on the menu, Baba, she said. But the kitchen made umkusho for the staff lunch. Samp and beans. If there is some left, I can bring it. He studied her face. Will they let you? I will ask. And if they say no, I will find something gentle for you anyway. He smiled. Nkosi, my daughter. Thandeka had wrapped 2 portions before Delia ordered the staff lunch cleared. Nomsa brought a small bowl of it 7 minutes later. Sipho took 1 bite and closed his eyes. This is good, he said. You did not put it on the bill. No, Baba. It was staff food, then I must pay you. No. Food that is already cooked should not go in the bin while somebody is hungry. He looked at her for a long moment. You speak like a person who has known hunger. Her smile got smaller. I know how to stretch a rand, Baba. Ah, he said. That is the polite cousin of hunger. She laughed before she could stop herself, and across the room Delia saw them laughing and came over fast. Nomsa. Why are you standing here? He ordered Mises. Delia looked at the bowl. Is that on our menu? No, Mises. It was from the staff lunch. He asked for something simple. Delia's face tightened. This is not a soup kitchen. Sipho wiped his fingers slowly. The food is excellent, he said. And your waitress showed me kindness. She showed poor judgment, Delia said. A place can have polished glass, the old man said, and still have no manners. For 1 second, Delia's smile disappeared. Then it came back, colder. Sir, if you are unhappy, another establishment will suit you better. He placed his napkin on the table and stood. Too quickly. The room tilted around him and he caught the edge of the table. Nomsa stepped forward. Baba, are you all right? I am fine. He was not. His last proper meal had been before 7 that morning. He had taken his diabetes tablets, sat through 2 meetings, and decided to see the estate before eating. The samp had come too late, and he had eaten too little. He went out through the side corridor because the front door suddenly seemed very far away. Outside, the rain had turned the loading bay into a sheet of moving water. Then the lights inside cut out completely. Stage 4, load shedding, right on the schedule, taped beside the till, 1600 to 1830. The generator coughed and caught, feeding the wine fridges first, the way it was set to. And in the dim gray light of the storm, at 14 minutes past 5, Nomsa carried 2 black refuse bags toward the bins and almost did not see him. Sipho lay near the delivery gate, one shoulder against the wall, his cane a meter away. His skin shone with sweat. His hands shook. His eyes were open, but they did not focus. Nomsa dropped the bags. Baba. She knelt in the water beside him. Baba, can you hear me? His lips moved. No words came. She checked his breathing, fast but there. She saw the medical bracelet on his wrist. Diabetic. Type 2. Her mind moved faster than her fear. In the first months of her course, she had done a basic emergency module, and the instructor had repeated one warning until they could all say it in their sleep. Never, force food or drink into somebody who cannot swallow properly. Baba, did you take your medicine today? A weak nod. Did you eat? Not enough. She shouted toward the kitchen. Thandeka, bring my red pouch from my locker, quick! Delia came first. What is happening? He is diabetic, Mises. His sugar is low. Please call an ambulance. Delia looked at the old man on the wet ground, then back toward the dining room where 40 guests sat in candlelight. Move him away from this gate first. The guests can see. Mises, he could collapse completely. Please call. I said move him. Do not turn one old man into a whole theater production. Nomsa, table 9 is asking for you. Something inside Nomsa went very still. Mises, he needs help. And you are a waitress, not a doctor. Thandeka ran out with the small red pouch. Nomsa opened it. Glucose gel. 2 pairs of gloves, gauze, a folded emergency card. She had bought it herself, months ago after the estate cabinet stayed empty. She pulled on the gloves. Baba, can you swallow for me? A nod. She put a little of the gel inside his cheek and waited. Thandeka got through to the ambulance service on the second try. Delia stood over them, rain speckling her ruby blazer. If you leave your shift, do not come back. Sipho's hand moved weakly and found Nomsa's wrist. Go, he whispered. I will manage. She looked at his trembling fingers, then up at Delia. No, Baba, she said, you are not managing. The ambulance arrived at 32 minutes past 5. By then, Sipho could answer simple questions, though he was still confused. The paramedic checked his blood glucose and shook his head, very low. Who gave the gel? I did, Nomsa said. Good. You did not give him water? No, good. People pour all kinds of things into a person's mouth and make it worse. He looked around. Does he have family here? We do not know. His phone was dead, rain in the charging port. His wallet, his tablets, his keys. His notebook had been gathered off the ground. Who can come with us until we identify him? The paramedic asked. Nomsa looked toward the estate. Delia's face already carried the answer. If you get in that ambulance, she said, your job is finished. Nomsa knew exactly what that job meant. Rent, food, the certificate she was already losing, the quiet dignity of paying her own way without phoning relatives who had their own troubles. She also knew what it meant to leave a confused old man alone among strangers. She climbed into the ambulance. Then she remembered his things and jumped back down. Thandeka, she said, we must write everything down. Under the metal awning, with the rain hammering above them, Thandeka found a clear security bag from the office. Nomsa laid the items on a dry crate and called them out. 1 brown wallet, 1 dead phone, 1 tablet pouch, 1 notebook, 1 bunch of keys. She opened the wallet only far enough to count the cash in front of Thandeka. 73,850 rand. Not a round number, not something she could forget. Her own 380 sat in her apron like a whisper. She sealed the bag and pressed until the lock clicked, and read the number printed on the seal out loud. Beeks 7139. Thandeka repeated it. Beeks 7139. Delia appeared in the doorway. What are you doing? Recording his property, Mises. Please sign that you received it. Delia's eyebrows lifted. You are teaching me procedure now? She snatched the bag, signed only her surname on the handwritten form, tore off the top section and kept it. Now go and save your stranger, she said, since you have decided he is worth more than your wages. Nomsa looked at the bag one last time. BX 7139. Then she got back into the ambulance and the doors closed. Neither she nor Thandeka knew yet that those 4 numbers would stand between the truth and a ruined name. At the private hospital in the northern suburbs, a receptionist asked for the old man's details. Nomsa only knew his first name. Are you his daughter? No. A relative? No. Then why are you here? Because somebody had to be. At 18 minutes to 7, a nurse said they needed glucose test strips the ward had run out of. There is a pharmacy downstairs, she said. About 140 rand. Nomsa touched her apron. 380. She went down. The strips cost 138 rand 40. She paid and came back up with 241 rand 60 to her name. Not enough for a proper trip home. At 12 minutes past 7, Sipho opened his eyes. My daughter, he said. You are still here. Your sugar dropped, Baba. They have stabilized you. He closed his eyes. I was careless. You skipped food after your tablets. He opened one eye. You are scolding an old man. I am advising an old man. That is scolding with respect. He smiled, then saw her uniform. Did you lose your shift because of me? She hesitated. I left my shift because you needed help. That is not what I asked. She looked away. Maybe I lost more than the shift. His face changed. What do you do, my daughter? I serve people, Baba. And I like making people feel welcome. What I do not like is being treated as if serving people makes me less than them. The sentence went into the room and stayed there. Sipho turned his face to the ceiling and his eyes were bright. Before he could answer, a nurse came in to say they had found a contact through his medical records. His family was on the way. Nomsa stood. Then I should go. Wait. He caught her hand. What is your full name? Nomsa Dlamini. Nomsa Dlamini, he repeated carefully. I will not forget. Please just remember your meals instead, she said, and she left. She had walked halfway to the taxi rank in the drizzle when her phone found 6 minutes of battery at a roadside kiosk. 17 missed calls. She rang Thandeka. Nomsa, where are you? Hospital. He is stable. Listen to me, Thandeka said, and her breathing had changed. Do not come back through the front. Delia opened the property bag, and the money is not there. For a second, Nomsa heard only the rain. What do you mean it is not there? She is saying you took it before you sealed the bag. You watched me count it. I know. Thandeka's voice dropped. Nomsa, what was the seal number? BX7139. The bag on her desk says BX793. Nomsa closed her eyes. Behind her the world carried on. A taxi hooting. A woman selling vet coke under an umbrella. As if her life had not just split down the middle. I am coming back, she said. The estate was full when she walked in at 36 minutes past 8. Conversation stopped. Delia stood beneath a hurricane lamp with the empty envelope in her hand, and 2 security men moved in behind Nomsa, and 40 guests turned, and the phones came up. Which brings us back to the beginning. Kneel down and confess. The torn name tag under a red heel. You smell of taxi smoke and township rain. Kneel. Nomsa did not kneel. She pointed at the clear bag on the service table. That is not the bag I sealed. Look at the number. Delia laughed, bright and sharp. Listen to her. Even with the evidence in front of her, she is still inventing stories. The number was BX7139. Thandeka heard me read it. Every face turned toward Thandeka, standing near the kitchen door in her white coat, her fingers gripping the edge of a tray. Rian Botha stood beside Delia in a charcoal suit, saying nothing. His eyes said enough. Thandeka had worked at Blue Crayons for 4 years. Her mother's medication cost more than her transport. One wrong sentence could take her off the payroll by morning. I saw Nomsa counting money, Thandeka said. But did you watch her put every note into the bag? Delia asked. Answer, yes or no. Thandeka's eyes filled. I was writing the list. I did not watch every note. Nomsa felt the answer like a small knife. Not because Thandeka had lied, but because fear had cut the truth down until it could no longer stand. Delia turned to the room and produced a laptop. She showed a clip of Nomsa entering the office corridor with the bag, looking left, disappearing through the door. Then the footage cut and resumed 17 minutes later, showing Nomsa leaving toward the ambulance. The power went out during load shedding, Delia said. This is all the camera saved. It speaks for itself. It did not. But edited pictures often speak louder than missing minutes. Rian slid a document across the table. Sign this. It said she accepted responsibility for the mishandling of guest property. It said the estate could recover the loss from her wages. This is a confession, Nomsa said. It is a confession wearing office grammar. Sign it, Rian said. No. Delia lifted a phone and began to record. State your name. Nomsa looked straight into the lens. My name is Nomsa Dlamini. I sealed that man's wallet, his phone, his tablets, and 73,850 rand inside bag BX7139. The bag on this table is BX7913. Somebody changed it. For the first time that night, Delia's confidence flickered. Then she slapped her. The sound cracked through the room. A glass slipped from a waiter's hand and shattered at the bar. Nobody moved. "You will not accuse me in my own dining room." Nomsa faced her again, her cheek burning, her voice steady. "This estate is not your home, Mrs., and a job is not permission to beat somebody." Delia's hand lifted again, and this time Thandeka stepped forward. "Enough. Just let her go." By 9 o'clock, the edited video was already online. Delia had cut out the part where Nomsa gave the correct seal number, cut out the slap, cut out the order to kneel. It began with the empty envelope and ended with Nomsa saying, "I will not sign." The caption read, "Blackouts protects its guests. Staff member dismissed after cash goes missing. No name." Her face was enough. By midnight, Nomsa was back in her room in Kayamandi, in wet clothes, watching strangers decide who she was. "Lock her up. See how innocent she looks. These ones are the worst." She switched off the phone, then her face folded, and she cried without sound, the kind of crying that leaves the body tired. At the hospital, Sipho's son had arrived at 23 minutes past 8. Sipho Khumalo did not run into rooms. He came into the ward in a navy suit, followed by Advocate Ruth Naidu, the head of ethics and compliance for Umoya Group. But when he saw his father under the hospital blanket, the chief executive disappeared for a moment, and only a son was left. "Baba. You came." "Of course I came. Why did you leave the driver 3 streets away? Why was your phone dead? Why did you skip lunch after your tablets?" "Can you see," Sipho said to Ruth, "how my own son squeezes his face at me?" "He learned it from you, sir," Ruth said. Sipho told them everything. The lie that the window tables were booked. The contempt. The samp the girl brought him without charge. The order to leave him on the wet ground because the guests could see. The ambulance. He remembered her exact words. "I serve people, but serving people does not make me less than them." The due diligence report rated management conduct as excellent, Lawazi said quietly. Sipho gave him a tired look, a report written by people in suits, rating people in suits. "What a miracle." Ruth's tablet lit up. "There is a video," she said. "The staff member who helped your father is being accused of theft. It is spreading." Lawazi watched 30 seconds of it. In the clip, Nomsa looked angry, the empty envelope filling the frame, Delia's voice explaining missing money. "No," Sipho said. "Whatever that is, it is not what happened. We do not yet know what happened after the ambulance left," Lawazi said. "I know what she did before it left. She spent her last money on strips to keep me alive." "Kind people can also steal," Lawazi said, not unkindly. "So can poor people. So can rich people. We clear no one on feeling." "Good," Sipho said. "Then do not convict her on a manager's title either. Find the truth first, then repair what is ours to repair." Ruth was already working. The property log Delia had sent had no original seal number. The CCTV file began after Nomsa entered the corridor. The generator report claimed a power surge. But Ruth had grown up in this country. She knew that load shedding leaves a trail. She pulled the published Eskom schedule for the area and the estate's own uninterruptible power supply log. And she sent a preservation notice to the security company that ran the estate's cameras before anyone could reach the delete button. And she went looking for Nomsa Dlamini. Nomsa, in those days, was not sitting still. The mediation officer at the labor center had told her one thing that lodged in her chest. One person's missing overtime is an error. 40 people's missing overtime is a system. So she counted. She rode the taxis on borrowed money, and she sat with current staff and old staff in shebeens and on plastic chairs, and at the corner where the Stockville met on Sundays, the savings club where the women pooled their money and trusted each other with it. She built her list there because those were people who already knew how to keep honest records when nobody powerful was watching. A cleaner who worked 19 days straight with no rest day pay. A cook whose hospital bill had been docked from his wages after he burned his arm on a faulty stove. Tips that never arrived, marked in the system as cash adjustment. A staff welfare fund nobody had ever received a cent from. Within 5 days, her list held 43 names and a number that made her sit down. 11,742,000 rand in wages, tips and unlawful deductions she could support with documents. The $73,850 in that envelope was not the crime. It was the door. Behind it stood a house full of stolen wages. When Ruth Naidu finally knocked on the door of a shack in Kayamandi, Nomsa answered with copies of her documents already in a bag, expecting the worst. "I want everything in writing," she said before Ruth could finish her sentence. "And I am not coming to collect charity." Ruth almost smiled. "Mr. Khumalo asked me specifically not to treat you like charity," she said. For the first time in days, Nomsa's face softened. Then he remembers. The recorded interview took place 2 mornings later, in a plain room at Umoya's offices in Cape Town. No cameras for show, no flowers, no giant check. Lawazi stood when Nomsa came in. "Ms. Dlamini, my father says you saved his life. I helped until the ambulance came, Baba." She told the story in order, with times. When she reached the seal number, Ruth asked her to repeat it, and she did. BX7139. And she placed the rest on the table one item at a time. The pharmacy slip for 138 Rand 40. A photograph of a settlement Delia had later tried to make her sign in a mall parking lot. The termination email that arrived with no hearing. And last, the spreadsheet of 43 workers. Lawazi stared at the total. "You did all this after you lost your job." "Why?" Nomsa looked at him. "'Cause they used one missing envelope to call me a thief. So I wanted to know what else had gone missing in that place." "Some of these are current staff," Ruth said, turning the pages. "Do you have permission to share their names?" "For 27, yes. For the rest, no. I removed their names from your copy." That answer mattered. It showed she was not throwing frightened people into the fire to strengthen her own case. But Delia did not go quietly. She announced a press briefing at the estate and called it a commitment to integrity. She stood in her ruby blazer before 2 bloggers and a small camera crew and spoke about false claims by a dismissed employee. And behind her, the edited footage played its 17 missing minutes. By evening, a headline ran under Nomsa's photograph. "Waitress accused of robbing elderly guests during blackout." At Umoya, Ruth received the cloud footage at 17 minutes to 11 that night. She did not open it alone. She called Lawazi, an independent forensic analyst and a legal observer, into a secure room, and every file was copied and logged before anyone watched. The full corridor recording began at 35 minutes past 5. Nomsa entered with Thandeka. They collected a bag. They left together. At 44 minutes past 5, Nomsa returned from the loading bay and handed a sealed bag to Delia, and as Delia turned it, the resolution was just high enough to read part of the code. 7139. At 46, Nomsa ran to the ambulance. At 29 minutes past 6, Rian entered the office carrying an empty bag marked BX7913. At 31, Delia joined him and closed the door. At 40, Rian left with something folded inside his jacket. There was no power failure. The UPS log showed an unbroken supply. The Eskom schedule showed load shedding had not started until 1600 and had ended at 1830, nowhere near that corridor's dark 17 minutes. The local copy had simply been cut, and the forensic analyst found that the edited file shown at Delia's press briefing had been exported from Rian Botha's administrator account at 2 minutes past 2 the following morning. Then Ruth opened the banking trace. At 12 minutes past 7 on the night of the incident, 73,850 Rand in cash had been deposited through an ATM into an account belonging to a company registered to Rian's cousin. The same account that had been quietly receiving the tip pools and the staff welfare fund for 2 years. Lawazi stood at the window with his hands in his pockets. "Suspend the acquisition," he said. "Full audit. And the awards evening in 2 days. Is she still going?" Ruth checked. Delia van Rensburg was confirmed to receive the Cape Hospitality Excellence Award for Humane Employer of the Year. "Then let her go and collect it," Lawazi said. In front of everyone. The evening came under a hard, clean sky, the storms finally blown out to sea. Nomsa stood before a cracked mirror in Thandeka's room and put on a simple pale blue dress a former colleague had lent her. Around her shoulders she tied a scarf, the exact burnt orange of the uniform Delia had used to reduce her to a job title. Tonight, she would wear that color because she chose to. At the convention hall, tables were dressed in gold and midnight blue, and on a small plinth stood a glass trophy shaped like an open hand. Delia's name was engraved beneath it. She wore emerald and diamonds and laughed with the organizers as if she were exactly the woman from her charity videos. Rian sat 2 tables away, checking his phone, sweat gathering at his temples despite the cold air. Delia saw Nomsa and her smile vanished. She crossed the floor, heels striking hard. "What are you doing here?" "I was invited," Nomsa said, holding up the card. "By whom?" "Umoya." Delia snatched it, employed complaining and laughed. "So that is what you are now. A professional victim." Nomsa did not raise her voice. "I am not here to fight you." "Fight me? Look around. These are ministers, executives, investors. You think one invitation makes you equal?" "No," Nomsa said quietly. "It did not make me equal. I was already equal in dignity before the invitation." The smile went out of Delia's face. "Remove these women," she told a security supervisor, and the man hesitated because they had valid cards, and while he hesitated, Delia turned back to the room and raised her voice for the crowd. "Please do not make a scene, Nomsa. You are still under investigation for stealing from a vulnerable old man." The word stealing traveled. Heads turned. It was happening again. Different hall, different dress, same circle of faces, same easy willingness to believe the manager over the waitress. And for one terrible moment, Nomsa thought she had walked into a trap, that the invitation existed only to make her repeat the accusation before powerful people so they could remove her as unstable. "Did you really think," Delia said, close enough that only Nomsa and Thandeka could hear, "that the old man would come and save you?" Nomsa held her gaze. "I did not save him because I expected him to save me." The side doors opened. No music, no announcer. Sipho Khumalo walked in first, in a deep burgundy shirt with ivory embroidery, his cane touching the floor once, twice. Beside him came Lawazi in cobalt, and Ruth in navy carrying a slim black folder, and 3 board members behind them. Chairs scraped, voices died, an organizer hurried forward. "Chief Khumalo, we did not know you had." Sipho did not look at him. His eyes had found Nomsa, and Delia turned slowly, and for a moment did not recognize the old man in the fine shirt. Then he tilted his head, the same way he had tilted it when she told him the window tables were reserved, and the glass trophy slipped out of her fingers and cracked against the edge of the plinth and rolled onto the floor. Sipho walked toward her. "My daughter," he said to Delia softly. "Do you remember me?" Her lips moved. No sound came out. "Chief Khumalo," she managed. "If we had known you were coming." Sipho raised one hand. "That sentence again," he said. And he asked for a microphone, and when it came, he nodded toward Nomsa. "Give it to her first." Her fingers shook when she took it, and Sipho faced the hall. "This woman is Nomsa Dlamini. 5 nights ago, she found me on wet concrete behind the Blackouts loading bay. My blood sugar had dropped, and I could not stand. She gave me emergency glucose. She rode in the ambulance with a stranger whose name she did not know. She spent 138 rand of the last 240 she had in the world on test strips the hospital needed." He turned toward Delia. "She did not know my surname. She did not know I founded Umoya Group." Then Lawazi stepped forward, and his voice needed no volume. "The old stranger Nomsa Dlamini carried out into that storm is Sipho Khumalo, the founder of Umoya Group." He paused. "And he is my father." The screen came alive. The corridor, in the rain. Nomsa kneeling beside the old man while Delia pointed toward the dining room. The seal, BX7139, turned toward the camera. The register, showing BX7913, issued to Delia 44 minutes later. Thandeka's time-stamped photograph of that register. The Eskom schedule beside the unbroken UPS log, killing the blackout story where it stood. Rian entering with the empty bag. The bank deposit, 73,850 rand, into a company owned by his cousin, 90 minutes after Nomsa handed over the sealed bag. And then the wider table, 43 names, 11,742,000 rand. Rian stood up so fast his chair fell. This does not prove I took anything, he said, and two quiet security officers moved to make running pointless. Delia raised her hands. I did not know about that account. Rian turned on her. You told me to remove the cash. You said we would put it back after we forced her to sign. Liar, you gave me the bag. You said the girl was poor and nobody would ever believe her. The room erupted, and the microphone in Sipho's hand caught every word. When it settled, Nomsa took the microphone from him and walked up onto the small stage, the burnt orange scarf across her shoulders like a flag she had chosen for herself. You used one missing envelope to make me look dishonest, she said, and her voice was quiet and clear. When our tips disappeared, you called it reconciliation. When our overtime disappeared, you called it a system error. When the welfare money disappeared, you called it administration. But when one old man's cash went missing, you called the poorest woman in the room a thief. Somebody began to clap. She raised her hand and the clapping stopped. Everybody believed the manager because she wore a ruby blazer, she said. Everybody doubted the waitress because I wore an apron. Nobody asked who had access. Nobody asked who controlled the camera, who wrote the report. You looked at our clothes and decided which face could carry a crime. Delia's chin trembled. I was under pressure, she said. Nomsa looked at her for a long moment. Pressure does not put character into a person, she said. It only shows what was already there. And then something in Delia's face broke that had not broken before. Not the fear of being caught, something older and worse. She looked at Sipho and then at the 40 workers standing along the walls, and then down at the cracked trophy on the floor with her own name on it, and the tears that came were not for the cameras. My God, she said, and her voice was small. I looked at that man and I saw nothing. She pressed a hand to her mouth. I looked at all of them for years and I saw nothing. I told myself it was standards. She turned to Nomsa. It was never standards. It was me. I made myself feel tall by making all of you feel small, and I called it my job. I am so sorry. I am sorry, and I know that word is too cheap for what I did. The hall was silent. Sipho closed his eyes for a moment because he had waited to hear whether the sorry would be for the powerful man or for the human being, and this time, at last, it was for the human being. Kneel, someone in the crowd said, half a joke, expecting Nomsa to demand it. Nomsa lifted the microphone. No, she said. I will never ask another person to kneel for my satisfaction. Stand and answer for what you did. Ubuntu Ubuntu Ubuntu. I am a person because of other people, even you. The consequences were not a slamming prison gate the next morning. Real accountability moved slower than the drama wanted, but it moved. The Cape Hospitality Board withdrew the award on the spot and lifted Delia's engraved nameplate off the plinth. Umoya suspended the acquisition and referred the accounts to the financial investigators and the labor authorities. The independent audit confirmed 11,742,000 rand owed to workers, and the interim repayments began within 3 weeks. Blackouts issued a written retraction clearing Nomsa's name, and when it read, we regret any distress caused. She asked Ruth to change one line, because distress does not fall from the sky, and the new line read, we cause serious harm to Ms. Dlamini's name and her livelihood. Rian Botha was charged with fraud and theft, and the frozen account told the rest. Delia van Rensburg was dismissed and never worked in the industry again, and the panels that had once begged for her name stopped answering their phones. She wrote to Nomsa once, a short letter, no excuses in it, only the words, I finally understand what I took, and Nomsa read it quiet and put it away. Because a person who finally sees the harm they caused is not the same as a person who has repaired it, and both those things are true at once. The estate closed for 11 weeks. When it reopened, the charity photographs were gone from the wall. A new sign stood by the staff entrance. All work has dignity. The first aid cabinet held glucose gel, sterile gauze, gloves, and a defibrillator, checked monthly. 16 workers were trained as emergency responders. Every lost property handover now needed 2 signatures, a barcode, and a digital timestamp, and nobody could quietly swap a BX7139 for a BX7913 again. Lawazi kept his word about managers working a floor shift, and he took the first one himself. On a Saturday morning, the staff watched their chief executive come in through the rear gate in a service apron. Nomsa, standing beside the duty supervisor, checked her watch. "Sir," she said, "you are 40 seconds late. Should we take 200 off?" Sipho, at a corner table with a packed lunch he was making a point of eating, laughed so loudly a passing guest turned to look. Nomsa never took the money they first offered her, the reward for heroism. She asked instead for a workforce development scholarship open to any service worker who had lost their training to wage theft, and she was one of 48 who applied. And she passed, and 6 months later, she finished her hospitality certificate. Sipho came to the graduation in his mustard cardigan and showed her his lunchbox before the ceremony so she would not scold him. Afterwards, out on the balcony over the dam, he took a folded piece of paper from his pocket, pressed flat inside a clear sleeve. The pharmacy slip, her name, the date, 138 Rand 40. "I thought you had a copy of that," she said. "This is the original," he said. "I keep it to remember that a small number can tell you everything about a person, and a very big one can tell you nothing at all." Below them, the dam held the last of the light. The vineyards went dark, row by row, and somewhere out past the mountains, the township lights came on all at once as the power returned, thousands of small windows glowing in the dark, each one a person, each person a whole world. If this story reached something in you, stay a moment longer. Tell me in the comments the name of the town where you are listening from, and subscribe, because the next true-hearted stranger is already walking toward a door somebody is about to slam in their face.